We are more connected than ever, yet many people feel alone. We speak to hundreds, sometimes thousands, through screens, yet something feels distant. Conversations happen constantly, but connection feels thinner. The world has never been this linked, and yet, quietly, loneliness has become one of the most common human experiences. And what if this feeling is not accidental? What if it comes from the way we have learned to see ourselves? Modern life teaches us to stand alone, to build a life that is self-made. Success is measured individually. Personal achievement, personal growth, personal gain. The idea is simple. Become independent, become self-sufficient, become complete on your own. And yet, despite all of this, something does not settle. Because somewhere along the way, we started believing that a person exists by themselves. In Southern Africa, there is a word, Ubuntu, I am because we are. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but it quietly challenges one of the strongest assumptions of the modern world. That identity begins with the individual. Ubuntu suggests something different, that your humanity is not yours alone. It is shaped by relationships, by the people around you, by the community you are part of. You do not become human by yourself. You become human through others. Ubuntu is not written as theory. It is lived. It is seen in how people greet each other, how they share, how they respond to suffering, how they celebrate. A person is not defined only by what they achieve, but by how they exist with others. The self is not separate, it is relational. Your identity is not a fixed point. It is something that forms and reforms through connection. For generations, this was not something to explain. It was simply understood. Life was not organized around the individual. It was organized around the collective. Community was not an addition to life. It was the structure of life. Support was not optional. It was expected. And in that expectation, something important existed. A sense of belonging that did not need to be earned. But something changed, not suddenly, but gradually. The individual became the center. Independence became the goal. Self-sufficiency became the ideal. And slowly, connection became secondary, something to maintain, not something to depend on. Today, we see the effects of this shift more clearly. People live in the same buildings, sometimes for years, without knowing each other. Conversations are replaced by messages. Presence is replaced by notifications. Relationships become efficient but shallow. Even care can begin to feel transactional, something given and something expected in return. And over time, connection starts to feel optional. Loneliness is increasing across the world, not because people are physically alone, but because they feel disconnected, even in groups, even in families, even in relationships. Because connection is no longer assumed, it has to be built, maintained, sometimes even negotiated, and often it feels fragile. Modern psychology has begun to recognize this. Human beings are not only independent thinkers, they are social beings. The brain itself is shaped by interaction. Emotions are regulated through relationships. Identity is formed through connection. Without it, something begins to weaken, not always visibly, but internally. A sense of isolation, a lack of grounding, a feeling of being unseen. Ubuntu understood this without needing to explain it. It starts from a different place, not with the individual, but with the relationship. I am because we are, which means that the self does not exist in isolation. It exists in connection. This changes how we understand harm. In a highly individual world, harm can feel contained, personal, separate. But Ubuntu suggests otherwise. If identity is relational, then harm is never isolated. When a community weakens, individuals feel it. When relationships break, something in the self shifts. When others are diminished, something in you is diminished too. Because the boundary between self and other is not as fixed as it seems. This is where everything quietly changes. Because if the self is relational, then healing is relational too. You cannot fully restore well-being in isolation. You cannot rebuild meaning alone, because meaning itself is shared. This does not mean losing individuality. It means understanding that individuality is not the starting point. It is the outcome of relationships. The way you speak, think, respond, care, and understand the world is shaped by the people around you, by the communities you move through, by the connections you experience. Ubuntu does not offer a quick solution. It does not give steps or methods. It shifts something deeper, the foundation from me to we to you. And perhaps the question is not how to become more independent, but how to become more connected. Not in numbers, but in depth. Not in frequency, but in presence. Because the modern world has made connection easier, but not always deeper. We can reach anyone, but still feel unseen. We can communicate constantly, but still feel unheard. Ubuntu reminds us that connection is not just interaction, it is recognition. To see and be seen. To exist with others, not just alongside them. Perhaps the problem is not that people are alone, but that the structures of belonging have weakened. And when belonging weakens, identity becomes unstable because it has nothing to rest on. Perhaps nothing is wrong with people. Perhaps something was forgotten. Ubuntu does not ask us to go backward. It asks something quieter, to notice, to recognize that the self is not complete on its own, that connection is not optional, it is essential. And maybe the solution to isolation is not more independence, but a return to something older, something simpler, something that was never entirely lost. To see yourself not as separate, but as part of a network of relationships. To understand that who you are is shaped by who you are with. Because when connection returns, something begins to settle. Not suddenly, but quietly. And when that happens, you do not just feel less alone. You feel more human. This is Ubuntu. I am because we are. And we were never meant to be otherwise. This is land and life. These are the echoes of the earth.